SBC Media.
Brazil, a global economic powerhouse, deeply passionate about sports, and now home to one of the hottest markets in gaming. And we're giving it the full SBC treatment. Join industry leaders, market experts, and all the major players in the country for 3 days of content, exhibition, and epic networking at the first ever SBC Summit Rio.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
The progress for getting new states to legalize online casino may have stagnated in 2023, but the iGaming industry itself spent the year growing and launching a wide range of new products, verticals, and partnerships. One of the most active brands on that front was BetMGM. On today's episode of iGaming Daily, we'll talk with BetMGM's VP of Gaming, Angus Nisbet, about the brand's busy 2023 and what to expect in 2024. Angus, welcome to the show. Before we get down to business, I'm kind of curious, how did you land in online casino? I assume as a small child, you didn't just grow up dreaming this was what you were going to do.
Well, actually, it's not too different to that in a way. When I was at school, there's a thing in the UK called the football pools, which is a list of all the soccer fixtures, and you have to guess whether the home team's going to win, the away team's going to win, or whether it's going to be a draw. So you have 1x2. And I remember one of my teachers asking me to help him with that. I used to help him with that every Friday before the football matches on the weekend. And I would have been about 9 or 10 years old. And I must have been quite good at it because he kept asking me to do it. Now, he was clearly then going off to put a bet on. But and he must have won every now and again because he kept asking me to do it. Anyway, so I was into kind of sports and sports betting from quite a young age. And I'm a fan of language. I've got a psycholinguistics degree. I taught English for a while, and that got me into kind of promotions and marketing. And I worked for an interactive TV company for a while. And then when I left there, I got a job at Mecca Bingo, which is a big bingo business in the UK. And I was doing some content management for those guys and doing some website marketing and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of evolved from there. They're part of the Rank Group. The Rank Group owned the biggest casino chain in the UK. So that was back in 2002, I guess, something like that. So 20 odd years ago. And I've been doing it ever since. And I love it.
Now, you've been with BetMGM since June 2022, right?
Yep.
We'll limit it to 2023. The list of things I was looking at that I want to talk to you today about what BetMGM has done over the past 12 months is huge. Do you have a personal favorite achievement or accomplishment this year for your team on the online casino side?
There's so many of them, Jess, to be honest. I think what's been really interesting from my point of view is how, as a team, we've evolved to really operate the business, looking at a net gaming revenue position. And, it's been stated, it was stated in the investor call and what have you, this year we're going to be EBITDA positive. We've been EBITDA positive for the second half of the year. And there's been a big shift from that gross gaming revenue position to net gaming revenue position this year. And I think how the team have all got on board with that and basically managed to work on a very, very different business model, which is, net gaming revenue rather than gross gaming revenue. That's been really, it's been really pleasing to see. I think we've got just a phenomenal team led. I mean, I go up as well as down. So from Adam to Matt Prevost to everybody up, sort of on the leadership team, and then all the guys and girls who work directly for me are just fantastic. And the enthusiasm and energy is amazing. And if I look at achievements per se, I'd say our product portfolio is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just unsurpassed. The amount of games that are being released on a week by week basis, whether that's from our own internal studios or whether it's from third party suppliers, it's just, you just can't keep on top of it, frankly. We've got over 3,000 games now. The work we did with Aristocrat to get Buffalo out live, the work we've done to get dual play roulette into the casino, the list goes on and on and on. So I'm just incredibly, we had a great team when I joined last summer, and we've added to that team, and we've sort of, we've grown all the people that we had there already. I'm just incredibly proud to work for this business and to have the team that works for me. And the reason I'm not giving a specific answer per se is because we've still got so much to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just starting. So I certainly don't want anyone to think that we're resting on our laurels.
No, not at all. We'll dive into Buffalo in a second. Just this week, you announced your new game with the NHL.
Yeah.
Obviously, this omni-channel crossover between sports betting and casino has been really crucial to BetMGM's success. What goes into taking like a sports league and casino-fying it and turning it into something that is still endemic of what the league is, but is appealing to a casino customer?
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of credit here goes to our partnerships team that work really closely with all of our ambassadors and our sports partners. All of our partners continue to want to work with us and continue to look at new propositions. So I mean, ultimately, this is a people thing, right? And they've got to trust that we're going to look after their brand and their teams and be cognizant of the responsible gambling message and make sure that we're not going to be appealing to people who are underage in terms of gambling. And frankly, we've got tens and tens of partners and different sports teams and different ambassadors and different, movie and TV IP that we work with. And I think all of them are, at the heart of them, are really good relationships that we have with those businesses and relationships of trust. So, for example, if you take the work we did with the NFL this year, when we had responsible gambling messaging in stadium during games at 9 partners. So that's not necessarily a money-making opportunity for us. That's not, it'd be much more sort of commercial to plaster up a sign-up bonus offer or something like that around the games. But responsible gambling is at the core of everything we do. And I think by working closely with these partners and respecting their brand and respecting how they operate and understanding how they operate, these guys have confidence that we're going to respect what they do and treat their brands with the respect they deserve. And I think having a partnership team that works across sports and casino is important, because the relationships get built up from a sportsbook point of view, and then they then share those opportunities with us on the casino side, and we can then feed back into the conversation. But as far as the NHL or whomever is concerned, there's one point of contact. So they're not dealing with a gaming team and a sportsbook team and dealing with loads of different people. So it's about relationships, I think.
All right. Buffalo is one. I'm so fascinated to talk about this because I will admit I'm not a particularly big slots player, but my friends that are have been obsessed with Buffalo for like 3 or 4 years at this point. When it comes to taking something like that is kind of this proven land-based entity, like what goes into making it an online title? I would assume if it was so easy as just like transposing from one to the other, we would have seen this a little sooner in online casinos development. So what was that process like of just adapting it into an online space? So
again, really, it's a relationship exercise with Aristocrat in that instance. So if you walk around the gaming floor of any casino, frankly, whether it's an MGM casino or any casino in the States, and you hear that very familiar whatever the noise is.
That is a very good impression.
Yeah, I'm not doing it justice, but you hear that everywhere around the floor, and you can hear people playing the game. So it's clearly for any online business, if you can try and tap into something that's already known and already has heritage within a retail establishment, within a land-based casino establishment, that's what we'd like to do. So we already have existing relationships with IGT. We have existing relationships with Light & Wonder. Now, these guys are more global than Aristocrat have been. So Aristocrat now, via an Axie and via the purchases that they're making, have become much more global in terms of a game studio. But up until this year, they didn't offer any content online, certainly not in the US. So we're very fortunate in terms of the relationships we have. Again, we talked about the partnerships thing. We have a partnerships team that we work very closely with. We work incredibly closely with our retail slots team and table games team. And those guys have great relationships with the likes of IGT and Aristocrat already. So we just kind of piggybacked onto the back of that, and we built up our own relationships. And I think, again, the work that my colleague Ollie Bartlett does and his team in terms of working closely with suppliers, again, is really, really important. He's from a B2B background. He used to work for Evolution, so he understands what it's like to be in that B2B world. I worked for Playtech before I came here, so I understand what it's like to be in B2B. And I think that's enabled us to talk to suppliers in their own language, if you like, to be able to say, we're not trying to, this has to be a partnership. We're not trying to take advantage of anything and drill you down into low rates and whatever. And in fact, we paid decent premium for Buffalo. And I think that worked well for Aristocrat and it worked well for us. So we then it's a partnership, but we're really in the hands of Aristocrat, the studio, and how they build the game and how they leverage that across digital as well. But we were involved in that every step of the way to make sure that it's something, because there's certain types of game that would work well in land-based environment that won't necessarily work well in digital. You know, the return to player that you have in a land-based slot is different to a digital slot and so on. So there's certain things in the math models that we have to work on together to get that right. But just having the title, having the sounds, having the assets and the imagery and all that stuff that people would recognize was hugely valuable for us.
We also had with IGT, the Wheel of Fortune kind of a whole, segmented off casino as well. I want to try to retire this discussion, but I think we're just going to keep having it. Cannibalization isn't necessarily the right word, but when it comes to, haven't we kind of learned the land-based customer and the online casino customer, there's certainly some overlap, but how much is that kind of its own different animal? What's the demographic overlap, and how much have you seen? Is it a different group playing online slots that you're trying to satisfy than necessarily the core land-based audience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, when I go to Vegas and I walk through the Bellagio, right, or I walk through the MGM Grand, or I walk through the Aria, this is not like a UK casino, right? You see everybody. You see male, female, all shapes, all sizes, all colors. And I walk through and I think, wow, this is our target audience. And actually, we've got to make sure that we're presenting the right content to all of those people. Now, clearly, some of those people will be there to go to the restaurants or go to the bars or whatever, and they might not, go and play on a $100 per stake roulette table necessarily, but they may well put $5 into the Wheel of Fortune slot as they're walking past it because they recognize the brand and they recognize Vanna White and, whatever it might be, Ryan Seacrest coming next and all that kind of stuff. This is where I think we can learn a lot from the UK experience. So if you look at the UK, and if you don't mind, I'll segue into arcade as well with what we've done with arcade as well as Wheel of Fortune, because when you look at the UK, there is invariably a casino tab, a sportsbook tab, a poker tab. There will also be a games tab. Now, if you look on the UK, there'll be a Slingo tab. There'll be an instance tab, whatever it might be, because what people are trying to do are trying to grow the ecosystem in which they can keep a player within their own brand. Whereas in the US at the moment, because it's still quite embryonic, you have a sportsbook tab, you have a casino tab, and you have a poker tab. That's really it. You might have a bingo tab, but this is a separate conversation. I think we haven't cracked what to do with bingo in the US yet. Certainly you can't transfer a European bingo proposition and give it to an American audience. It doesn't work. So the thinking behind Wheel of Fortune was, can we appeal to a slightly different demographic to BetMGM Casino and Borgata Casino? So we have the two casino brands. Borgata is arguably a little bit more highbrow. Maybe it's supposed to be a bit more sophisticated. BetMGM a bit more kind of coverall, if you like. The reality is those two brands are very similar in terms of the demographic of players that we have on them. It depends on, by state, but they're pretty much the same. They're kind of 65% male on both of those propositions. When you look at Wheel of Fortune Casino, we've got a 50-50 split. So it's a much higher penetration within the female demographic. And we're also seeing players visiting more often, to the tune of about a day per week more often than someone who comes to BetMGM Casino. So that's really good news. They're spending a lot less, right? So in terms of the net position, it works in loads of different ways, but we've got more softer players, if you like, coming in and playing more often. So there's two benefits to that from a business. First of all, there's an immediate net gaming revenue position, which is you're going to make more money because you're offering a different product proposition. But there's also, in my opinion, there's an opportunity cost gain in which if someone's playing on Wheel of Fortune Casino, they're not going to be playing on Bingo Blitz, or they're not going to be playing on FanDuel or DraftKings or whatever. So I think we get a benefit. Time as a currency is something that as a sector we don't really measure. And we all have, lots of pools on our time, and it's not just online gaming sites. It's news media sites. It's whatever else it might be. So Wheel of Fortune is definitely, it's early days for Wheel of Fortune. We've only been live in one state for a few months, and we're learning how to operate that. But we're going live in 2 more states in the first half of next year, and I think we'll see some real progress there. And then with our arcade tab, which we launched just a month or so ago, this is really interesting for me. This is a bit of a sort of labor of love for me. I'm at my heart, I'm a bingo guy. I've worked in bingo in the UK for a long, long time, as well as casino. And I think there's a real opportunity here to do something that's targeting maybe a completely new demographic. Maybe someone who'd never play roulette or blackjack, but actually would definitely play a Lucky Tap game or a Slingo game, or they might play the Godfather slot because they know the IP, or they might do something like that. So giving us an opportunity to have an area. I know what's Katie's great expression, which is it's where nostalgia and iGaming converge, which I really, really like. It's great, isn't it? So this whole idea that, you used to play the arcade in the shopping mall, and now it's coming into your home now. So there might be traditional arcade games. We might have Space Invaders on there. We might have that sort of game, but I think it's more likely to be this kind of next generation of games that are coming through, and they're called fast games in some areas, like crash games and mind games and stuff like this, which if you look at different territories such as South America and South Africa, these games are smashing it. The aviator game in these territories are making more money than slots. So there's a big commercial benefit. There's an opportunity to target a player that doesn't want to spend so much money. And there's also the opportunity to target a demographic of player who isn't necessarily keen on playing roulette or live casino games. And there's also the opportunity to extend the time within the BetMGM ecosystem. So you're a player that likes to play on the casino, will actually go and play our free-to-play one reel slot that's available on our arcade tab. And that shifting players from one tab to another is something that's very, very familiar to a UK player. It's something that happens in the UK very frequently. And I think there's a real opportunity to do something there. That's very, very exciting for us next year.
You say nostalgia, but I'm curious, does it... I've had some conversations with people in the online casino side of things that have said younger people don't necessarily like that very chance-filled slot experience. And so these crash games and Lucky Tap and that kind of thing, where there's not necessarily more control, but more illusion of control, is appealing to them. Do you think that's kind of where the next generation of casino is going?
I think there's always going to be a place for traditional casino games, without doubt, because they're timeless, right? Your traditional roulette and blackjacks. These are always going to be the games that are most popular. And if you walk around the casino floor, that's still the case now. And frankly, they're always going to be the games that give you the most handle. So they're always going to be core to any kind of product proposition. That said, there's going to be innovation within those areas. Dual play roulette, the stuff that we're doing in MGM Bonus City and all that kind of stuff. There will be a lot more innovation like that, where you have, you can play online, you can play in retail, you play the same table at the same time, all that kind of stuff. So there'll be some smart innovation there where for a decent section of the player base, they're always going to love those games. Now, my view, if you look at what can we learn as a sector from the social gaming sector? We have, let's say, between 100 and 150,000 players every day on BetMGM Casino, something like that, depending on what promotions are on and what have you. That's peanuts compared to a Bingo Blitz or these guys have millions and millions of players. So You know, I always use my wife as an example. She's never ever going to play roulette online in a million years. And I've been doing this 20 years and she's never shown any interest in doing that. But would she play a trivia game online or a crossword game or some game that would tap into Wheel of Fortune or Family Feud or The Price is Right or something like that, which is a familiar entertainment brand? Then, you know, that's the UK. And in the US, I think the thing that surprised me, I didn't have my head around how popular sports are in the US. I don't think it can resonate with someone until you've spent time in the US. You can't. I mean, it's amazing, you know, the college sports phenomenon and everybody has their team and everybody cheers on their team. And that's very different to the UK. So can we appeal to a demographic of players who wouldn't necessarily play roulette, but would play a, you know, New York Jets crash game as an example, an aviator stuff? That feels like something that should be really easy to achieve.
Jets fans are used to crashing, so I'm sure that one. Sorry, you laid that one up for me. I had to take it. Apologies, Jets fans.
I did. I'm a Bills fan. I went to the Jets-Bills game when I was in New York earlier this year as a Bills fan, and I left early to get anyway. And the Jets ended up winning that game. So that's right. I had egg on my face after that, but that's the line. Maybe I shouldn't use the Jets and the aviator analogy. But you know what I mean.
And crash, just
and the Eagles. How far can the Eagles fly? That kind of thing. You know.
There we go.
There feels like there should be plenty of opportunity there. Yeah.
I feel like I've talked live dealer to death, but hybrid dealer is one that I'm not sure I'm overly familiar with, and I'm not sure our audience is necessarily. What is the hybrid dealer product and how has that launch gone so far?
Yeah, so hybrid dealer is really, really interesting because I think it gives us, when you look at sort of live dealer and dual play roulette and stuff like that, these are very, they're quite costly games to set up. You have to have an area on the gaming floor. You have to have the lights. You have to have the cameras. You have to have the dealers and so on and so on. So the opportunity is clearly large in those areas, but the cost is also large. And so the business case takes a bit more time to work through. I think the hybrid stuff is interesting because it's done in front of a green screen. So if you think about what we've done with Spin City or Bonus City, it's essentially a Wheel of Fortune game. And, you know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out what we might do with that going forward with our Wheel of Fortune connection. But essentially you can film it in front of a green screen. So it'd be very, very easy for us to extend that to have, say, Vanna White coming in. All she has to do is come into a studio for an hour. We get her to film, you know, 100 spins of the wheel or what have you. And then essentially you've got the content you need for a game. So it's much more accessible, I think, and much more, there's a lot more promotional opportunities around it. If, for example, let's say we wanted to build a March Madness dual play roulette game, the business case just wouldn't stack up because the costs associated with building something specific for a short period of time would be too much. I mean, you can brand the felts and you can put, you know, flyers around and what have you, but that's not necessarily going to work. Whereas with the hybrid game, it'd be very, very easy to get a load of people in front of a green screen, do something crazy for March Madness. You film it in a couple of hours and you put it up and then you just keep going. So I think there's a lot more opportunity to be creative with it. And we've got a lot of ideas around how we can really leverage all of our partnerships and our ambassadors and really leverage that space. And again, it's something that it just feels like as MGM/BetMGM, that's something we should be able to do much better than anybody else in the space with our connections with the Vegas casinos.
I mean, it seems like it's just very efficient engagement because that's the whole thing about live dealer, right? Is that you feel like you're not just in it by yourself, that you are creating that concept.
Yeah, there's engagement and then there's trust. I think a lot of people like to see a dealer, you know, especially if you haven't played online before. There's an element of trust there. You think actually if there's a dealer there, it must be more, you know, it must be more trustworthy maybe. I mean, it's not, it's the same, but I get why people think that. It's
still early days for US. You know, I'm a poker person by trade. And I remember someone asking me early on, like, how do you tip the dealer online? And I was like, oh, sweetie, it's not a person. You know, another selling point. You don't have to tip the dealer, but, you know, okay, obviously, I mean, I'm not even sure we hit everything on 2023, but 2024, anything you kind of want to hint it is on the horizon, or any predictions about where you think the industry might be going? I think new states were all a little bearish necessarily, but just still it's going to grow, I would assume. So where do you see that growth coming?
Well, do you know what? I think it's been, I'm an optimist by nature. So when I look at this year, and clearly it would have been great if we'd have had a few states coming on board, or a few provinces, if maybe, Alberta had happened or what have you. The reality is with those states, with nothing happening this year in terms of new state development, we've had to operate. We've had to work with what we've got. And, it's not just printing money by just adding new states and what have you. You've actually got to operate. So I've really enjoyed that, because that's I'm not a marketeer by trade. I'm an operator. So I like to roll my sleeves up and work out, how to actually make the cash. So I've enjoyed that. I think when we look forward to next year, this isn't easy, would be my first thing. And I think, we know we've got a target on our backs, if you like, in the world of online casino, but it's not easy. And the team that we've built, with the experience that we have, with the relationships that we have with BetMGM, it's very, very, it's difficult to replicate that. So I'm not so worried about DraftKings and FanDuel. They'll do their thing, and we're just focused on what we're doing. But I think Adam talked to most of our strategic objectives for next year. He talked to them in the investor call earlier this week. If we deliver omni-channel, and by omni-channel I mean MGM and BetMGM, retail and digital together. If we deliver our plans in that space, this isn't just single account, single wallet in Nevada, but that's clearly an important thing from a sports betting point of view, and giving people the opportunity to register when they're in Nevada next year, whenever it happens, and then go back to their states and where they're allowed to game. So there'll be a big acquisition opportunity there. But if you look at MGM rewards, and I try and keep me honest here with the numbers, but I think there's 30 million MGM rewards members. So people who've been to an MGM resort and have an MGM rewards account, 30 million. That's half of the population of the UK, for context. So how do we give all of those people a proposition where it's seamless when they come to BetMGM and MGM? If you're a VIP at MGM resorts, you get treated as a VIP when you come to BetMGM. This is all stuff that's starting to happen now, and you're going to see a huge focus on that for us next year. So that's what I would call omni-channel. Then you have the cross-sell, which you talked about earlier, from sportsbook to casino, and you were very kind to say that it's an area, where we succeed. We could do much better in that area. And actually, I think, when I mentioned DraftKings and FanDuel, they do better than us in that area. They have done better than us in that area. And a lot of that is down to product and the improvements that we've made in our sportsbook product this year, going a huge way to making that easier for cross-sell. But we've now got teams of people focusing on this stuff. So again, how do you make it completely seamless? Someone likes a sports bet, they get a casino bet, you put a bet on the Jets, you also get a free spin on the Jets game, all that kind of stuff. So omni-channel in terms of digital and retail, cross-sell in terms of sports to casino, and vice versa, actually. And what else can we talk about? I mean, content will continue to be king. We've got some some amazing promotional ideas coming down the track, which I can't share with you, but there's some stuff that, in my mind, if I land in Vegas and I'm wearing this, or I'm wearing this, and I go to passport control, I'm through in a minute, because everybody wants to talk about MGM. Oh, I'm an MGM rewards player. When are you going to give me another comp at the hotel? When are you going to do this? You get in an Uber. Oh, yeah. I'm an MGM rewards player. So when you think Vegas, you think MGM. You've got the Super Bowl coming in February, right? I mean, it's going to be everywhere. The Grand Prix, people were in the Bellagio 8 feet away from the Formula One cars driving past. There's no one else that can offer that kind of omni-channel experience. And I spoke to one of my colleagues earlier, and he's been in Vegas all week, and he says what he said to me was, I've got my swagger back because we are MGM. And I think, when you look at BetMGM in the digital space, we're at number 3, and we know we're playing catch up with DraftKings and FanDuel in terms of total revenue. we compete pretty well with those guys in terms of iCasino in same state. But once we land everything that we're going to land as MGM/BetMGM, and when we talk to our players, a lot of them say, oh, well, I play on MGM. So we need to be very cognizant of that we're not separate. We're very much part of the same team. And that's certainly what the leadership team at MGM think, and certainly what we think about MGM. So, content will be king, but if we land cross-sell and we land omni-channel, then we're going to be very difficult to catch, I'd say.
All right, last quick question, because I am a poker person.
Yes.
Very excited. The Borgata Poker Open I used to report on those WPTs, and those have always been a great event. Very excited to see that coming back. Is compacting on the horizon for BetMGM next year?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Hopefully, regulation allowing and technology allowing. So we had hoped that would happen sooner than it's going to happen. But we work very closely with Entain in the world of poker. There's been some reorganization there. We know exactly what their roadmap is, and we know exactly how that's going to support us. So, our poker team is run by Luke Stademeyer. I don't know if you know Luke, but Luke and Will O'Connor.
I used to report on Luke when I was a poker reporter.
I mean, that guy, he is a superstar, right? And so he's built up this incredibly engaged poker team and incredible communication around the community. And I used to run the GUK PT, which is the Grosvenor UK Poker Tour in the UK. And I know how hard it is. And I know how important it is. Poker's a very different beast to casino, right? As you and I both know. So hopefully sort of cross-state liquidity is definitely something on the calendar. Hopefully for H1 next year, it's certainly what we're hoping. But, the only place to play poker in January of this year is at the Borgata, right? I mean, was it $10 million of guaranteed? You've got online only qualifiers, you've got everything being streamed online. So I really think that next year is going to be a lot of fun for poker.
Looking forward to it. I could keep you another hour because there's just so much to go for. I'll let you go though. Congratulations on just a really productive 2023, and thanks so much for giving us a gleam into what to look forward to next year.
Well, let's do it again in 2024 and see where we've got to. You can keep me honest.
I know, we'll book you in for December 2024 and see where we're at. Thanks so much, Angus, and thanks all of you for listening. Be sure to keep tuning in to iGaming Daily.
SBC Media.